Ladies and gentlemen, we want you to stand and we want you to make some noise.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go racing here at Knoxville.
Only the best go three abreast.
It is show time at Williams Grove Speedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here at Eldora Speedway, it's showtime!
You've got a for a breath. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the world of outlaws.
It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy because, ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime!
Set to do battle for 30 laps. The green flag is waving.
Hello again, it's Wing Nation, talking sprint cars, our favorite time of the week, and we are so glad that you have joined us. Steve Post and Erin Evernham here. Erin, there once in a while I come in here, I'm all happy, and yeah, I'm happy, but we had some sad news in the sprint car world with the passing of Bobby Allen this weekend. What an icon, what a legend, what a sad time in our sprint car world.
It sure is. I mean, Bobby was one of the original outlaws. He was the first year with the World of Outlaws and kind of a staple in the World of Outlaw pits, you know, certainly with his son and his grandson and Shark Racing. But what a storyteller, what a happy guy. Yeah,
you know, we talk about the racing and the stats say one thing, but the character and the personality say a whole lot more. And we wanted to talk to somebody that probably has a long history with Bobby Allen. So Lance Dewease joins us from up in the great state of Pennsylvania. Lance, first off, great to have you joining us. We appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Bobby Allen, when I say that name, what comes to mind, Lance?
Innovator. I mean, he was unbelievable. The smarts that he had for sprint car world or any world, the go-kart world, every world that he was involved in, you know, his stuff was always really fast. He kind of knew how to do everything or knew about everything with the sprint car stuff, with motors to chassis to wings to, you know, everything. You know, there's a lot of, you know, things that we run today that he was the first guy to do. The 5x5 wing was he was the first guy that I know to ever run a 5x5 wing. And, you know, stuff like that is just great. And, you know, a lot of people probably don't realize that my very first race car was a Bobby Allen car. So, you know, I got to meet him at a very young age when I started racing.
When I first started reading a little bit more about Bobby, you know, I read that he moved from Florida to Pennsylvania and sometimes slept in the Lincoln Speedway like tower or booth, ticket booth, I think is where he slept sometimes just to make ends meet and to become who he became as a race car driver. And then later on, obviously, he brought out his grandson and his son with Shark Racing, the World of Outlaws, and no one really thought they were going to make it. They were scrapping together whatever they could. And here they are 11 years later. Talk about that side of Scruffy, as they called him, that grit and that determination.
Oh, he always, you know, found a way to survive. He probably, you know, through his career owed a lot of money to a lot of people, but he always found a way to make it work and, you know, to pay them back and, you know, pay his bills and make it work. You know, one thing about this racing industry, especially on our type of level, you know, if you start screwing people over, we all learn about it really quick. And, you know, Bobby always, you know, did what he said he was going to do. And, always seemed like he always come through on top, you know. But he was an unbelievable smart guy when it comes to these race cars. And, you know, I was fortunate enough, you know, I'm old enough that I was fortunate enough to race with him and get against him for a little bit in my career early, you know, before he quit. But it's neat to see what he's done and how, you know, he took Logan and Jacob and kind of built their careers and got them where they're at today.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. It really, truly is. What was he like as a racer? What was it like to haul it off around the dirt tracks side by side with Bobby Allen?
Well, you knew where he was going to run. There was no question about that. You knew where he was going to run. It was just, you know, he was always, you know, he roll out there in time trials and you think, man, he is slow and he set fast time. And it's just always amazing how he would do that. And, you know, him and, you know, I kind of put Donald Kreitz Jr. in that same, you know, boat. They were always so, you know, good at making their cars go fast and they never looked fast. But Bobby was unbelievable at it. You know, I still remember, I remember a race at Silver Spring. I can't remember if it was Speed Week show or what. It was Bobby and Jack Howenshield racing, and one was hitting the inside fence and the other one was hitting the outside fence, and they ran side by side. It seemed like for 15 laps, until I think Bobby ended up winning it. But it was unbelievable to watch, him race. The smarts that he had was unbelievable. I guarantee most of your audience today, even the racers today, don't realize that if Bobby Allen would have built chassis for other people, there would be no Maximum. There would be none of these other chassis because everybody would be in them. And I think, you probably could check with Wolfgang on this, but I think when Wolfgang came in to drive the Weikert car, he wanted Bobby to build him cars, but Bobby wouldn't do it. He didn't want to race against his own cars.
Wow. Interesting. Speaking of that era, I just finished reading Steve Kinzer's new book that Dave Argerbright wrote. And, I always think about the early Outlaws. You think about the big three, Sammy, Steve, and Doug. But in Steve's book, he talked a lot about Bobby Allen and how he was such an integral part of the beginning of the World of Outlaws, the growth of sprint car racing. Just talk about what they laid for a foundation for the sport we now all enjoy.
Oh, they done a lot. All of them, those four guys really probably more so than most. There's probably one or two other guys that we're not really thinking of. But, you take Steve, Sammy, Doug, and Bobby. And Bobby probably is not as, I don't want to say recognized because he is, but from a driver's standpoint, he wasn't exciting to watch. He kind of was a sneaky guy that, got the job done, won his fair share of races, and did it his way. And, it was just always, I think he was more of a people's person than a lot of the other guys. Steve and Sammy were pretty intense racers. Doug was pretty intense in a different way than Steve and Sammy, but, Bobby, I think it just seemed like he was always out there trying to have fun, race, but always, it seemed like he had fun and enjoyed meeting people and was more of a people person, I think, than most of them guys.
I'll say. And what's fascinating, back in that era, the people skills were probably not as important as the on-track performance, where now it seems like it's almost flipped the other way.
Well, yeah, now it's about your social media following, to a certain extent. There's people that are getting notarized for their social following that really haven't done much in a race car compared to maybe somebody that has done better in a race car but don't really do no social networking type stuff. But back then there was none of that. Probably a good thing. From what some of the stories are about some of them guys. But it's just one of those deals. He when he won the Knoxville Nationals, it was just again another unbelievable race between him and Sammy that night, and just the crowd support and the fan support after he won Knoxville was unbelievable.
We played that one time. We had him on a Wing Nation show, and we were able to play that over top of it. He gave us a lap by lap of it. It was amazing. It really, truly was. It's such a different era because now we sit here, Dirt Vision and all of this other stuff, but I can't imagine what the atmosphere was like that night when Scruffy took out Sammy there. Can you talk you mentioned about the atmosphere with the crowd, but where were you at? What was your perspective on it all?
Well, I wasn't there, but we were fortunate enough to be watching it, and it was one of those.
It was TV then, right? Yeah,
it was TV then, and it was just fun because Sammy had an oil leak and he is just pounding the wall. All he had, trying to make it to the end, and Bobby's just run the bottom like he does and just kept hitting it and hitting it. You could see every lap he's creeping in on him, and for somebody like Bobby who built everything from motors to wings to chassis to every single thing. Like when I started racing, we bought wings from Bobby. He built them for us. There wasn't, quote, to say wing builders. There was maybe one or two, not like there is today. Today I can make a phone call to a speed shop or to wing builder and have stuff. Back then, it was very seldom you could do that. You had to either make it yourself or go buy it either like from Bobby or a few little speed shops around, but not like it is today.
You speak about Bobby's personality. That's one thing that I noticed in Steve's book, but even on social media in the last few days, everyone talks about his storytelling, the good times they had with him. There's so much positivity. He's one of those racers that I haven't personally ever heard much negative about. But his storytelling, everyone talked about his stories. Is there a good Bobby story you could tell us that is not is it is family friendly?
No, not really. I was, I've raced and not raced around him a lot. So I really haven't been around him a lot in the last, probably 10, 15 years, other than when he shows up at the track. I was fortunate enough that he called me actually 2 weeks ago after Anthony's wreck and got hurt. We were talking about some safety stuff, the seat mounting system that I'm running now compared to what they run, and some ideas about the safety of the cars. And we probably spent a good hour and a half on the phone about that, and it was neat to have that conversation with him, since he's passed now. But he was just, everybody loved him. He was just a down to earth guy, and just everybody loved him. He always looked happy at the racetrack, which that's hard to do. Trust me, that's very hard to do. Steve probably don't understand as much as you do, Aaron, as far as it's hard to be happy sometimes at the racetrack. And
most times. Yeah.
Yes. And it's hard at times to be polite to people sometimes, because you're in one mode and you're all one mode, and people are talking to you, you're not really paying attention to them because you're in race mode. And it depends on how your evening's going. It's hard, but Bobby just seemed like he was always a cheerful guy and enjoyed talking, enjoyed telling stories. And it's just great to see the fan support for him now, even though he hasn't raced for how long he hasn't raced. It's neat to see all the stuff about him.
Yeah, it really truly is. My favorite talking to him in the pit, which to me was a combination that I would never figure to be part of, and a beverage I never figured to be part of. We're at World Finals, and it was Bobby, Kerry Madsen, and I drinking Miller High Lifes after the race. And we stood there for an hour, and more so with me, it was more Kerry picking his brain, and Bobby, and I'd interject a little bit, but I think that's the thing with Bobby. And it didn't matter if he was talking to Kerry Madsen or Steve Post or Lance Dewease or Erin Evernham. He was just that happy guy that would just like to be at the racetrack and like to be BSing and talking and carrying on. And that's what I took from that conversation from him. Was really, really neat. And you're right. And Aaron, you guys both agree. That's not always the case. There's times you want to get out of that racetrack, and he always seemed comfortable at the racetrack.
Yeah, I certainly was more around him when he was a team owner,
sure.
Father, grandfather at the track. So he was definitely happy. But Lance, you might know a little bit more. What was he like when he was racing? I know I keep referring to Steve's book, but we're talking about that era. Steve talked about how Doug Wolfgang at the track was real serious, but when you got him away from the cars, he was, great guy, got to see his personality. He had some other things to say about Sammy on and off the track we don't need to talk about. But what was Scruffy like when he was racing? Did you get to be around him? Did he have that personality even when he was a driver?
Yes, he was all about fun, I think. He was always doing things that I would never thought about doing before I strapped in a race car. Having people around him, yes, I would say Steve, Sammy, and Doug were a little bit more intense, more worrying about the racing end of it than what Bobby might have been at certain times of his career. But he always had fun doing it. We were parked next to him at East Bay one time, and he just enjoyed it. And it just it just kind of blew you away that he could just enjoy it no matter how bad it was. Yeah. But I guess some of it's because he built from nothing. He done it from nothing, and he never had no corporate to say backing. He'd have this guy back him for a while, this guy back him for a while, but he's just always managed a way to find a way to make it happen, and still win races and be very competitive and do it his own way.
Yeah, that happiness at a racetrack, if he could bottle that up and sell it, he would have been a gazillionaire. I thought it was interesting in the Shark Racing statement they put out yesterday. They talked about how he loved to be surrounded by beautiful women, which we all in the racing industry know. Bobby liked his beautiful women. When you talk about him having fun, that's some of the stuff that Steve talked about, their lives and travels on the road. And it's great to read that book, to feel like you're a part of that era, and to only imagine what the world of outlaws was like in 1978, 79, 80, when there's no glitz and glamour. They had open trailers in the beginning. It's just neat to think about the life, then their version of the sport we all love.
Oh yeah, it really is. He definitely loved his women around him, and so, but yeah, it was really, them guys, and I'm including Steve, Sammy, Doug in this, because the guys that race today on the outlaw circuit or high limit don't realize how easy they have it. They tend to complain at times about racing too much or this too much. They don't realize how easy it is today for them, the guys, to travel compared to what Steve, Carl, Sammy, Bobby Allen did through the 70s, 80s, even when I started 86, 87. It wasn't a glamorous lifestyle. It wasn't, showing up in track trailers with, 3 race cars completed. If they wrecked something, they unloaded something. It was a hard life that them guys just did for a long period of time.
Amazing stuff. It really, truly is. Lance, my final question on the Bobby aspect of this: a few years back, and I'm new to the sport, newer to sprint car racing. So when he came up with this crazy idea to throw Logan and Jacob in the hauler and go World of Outlaw Racing, everybody's shaking their head. I'll never forget a conversation I had with Fred Raymer. Fred, and you know Fred as well as I do. You know Fred better than I do. Fred's like, this makes no sense in the world. Makes no sense in the world. He said, I would swear to God it's never going to work, except it's Bobby Allen doing it, and it may very well just work. That was Bobby Allen, really. Don't tell me it's not going to work. Don't tell me I can't take these 2 kids out racing, because they are a formidable sprint car team toward the top of the pecking order right now.
Yeah, but Fred's right. Like, if it was anybody besides Bobby, it wouldn't work. There is no way. But Bobby is a survivor, always was a survivor with his racing, and he makes it work. And he had it down to the math on what they got tow money wise and all this stuff, and they made it work, and they built it into where they're at today. With the help of some other people now, with Bill with Logan. Right. And all, with the PR end of it, which really has boosted them. But it's Bobby. That's what he did. He figures out a way to make it work, and that's how he's always been.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, let's talk a little bit about your season. You guys have had a lot of speed recently, for sure. Ran second Friday night. Tell us about what you have going on.
We've been pretty fast all year. I've been pretty happy all year. We just hadn't had good draws go our way. At Port Royal, we were really good. Till Tussler 50, we weren't very good in there for some reason. I kind of know where we messed up there. But yeah, we've had speed. We've been pretty fast. We've been timing way better this year than what we did last year. Just it seems like the big shows just here at the end of the year just didn't go our way, and that happens. That's no fault of anybody's. It's just the way this sport is sometimes. Up to Tussler 50, I was the only guy that ran in the top 3 in every big show that Port had. So we ran really good. We've passed a lot of race cars this year. We just off in the last 2 big shows locally, and then just sometimes you have to have the draw go your way, and we haven't had that go our way very well this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What's going forward? What more races do you have before we get done here, Lance?
We have Lincoln Outlaw Show this weekend. I have another Lincoln show next weekend. Yep. BAPS, last 2 BAPS shows, and probably Bridgeport. So I have about 5 or 6 shows left for this year.
Well, it's been fun to watch. Friday night was a blast to watch. Friday night, I watched Dirt Vision. Just the way my schedule was with the Roval and everything. I got home and I just plopped down. I watched both nights of World of Outlaws. We'll talk about this a little bit later on, but Friday night just was a fun race to watch. I know you came up one spot shy, but man, that racetrack Friday night, that was just fun to watch.
It really was. Um, it, you know, Alba had him cleared off before the one lap. Just couldn't clear him. And then, at the Grove, if you're not cleared of him if you're not in front of him or have a nose in front of him at the flag stand, you're not beating him into the next corner. And that kind of was the race for us at that point. But it was a fun race. It really was. It's always fun when you get in lap cars and you have the leaders dicing around and battling back and forth. And it is fun. Even if you don't win, it's still a fun race. It's, when you rewatch it and see how good a race it was, it's always enjoyment.
It was awesome. Lance, we appreciate the time. We appreciate you taking time out to talk about Bobby, but we also just appreciate your time and watching you wheel that car around the racetrack. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you down the road.
All right. Thanks for having me on. You guys have a great day.
There we go. Lance Dewease joining us here. We're going to step away. When we come back, we're going to talk about, a little different innovation. Tanner Thorson, he joins us next here on Wing Nation.
3, 2, 1, start your engine.
The NASCAR channel is streaming now, exclusively on Tubi. Go deeper into NASCAR with 24/7 news, documentaries, and explore the vault of timeless NASCAR stories and unforgettable races. From crushing defeats to the thrill of victory.
Go, baby!
The NASCAR channel, always on, always free. Only on Tubi.
Welcome back. It is Wing Nation. Erin Evernham and Steve Post. Great to catch up with Lance Dewease, and great to catch up with this guy. Has a couple of wins on the high limit tour. Tanner Thorson joins us. Hello, Tanner. How are you?
How's it going, man? Doing good.
We're doing great. Tanner, I want to. We just finished a conversation with Lance Dewease. The first word Lance said when we mentioned Bobby Allen was innovator, and one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is some innovation, some things you're working on. Erin's an engineer, by the way, so she's really geeked up about talking with you. But I do want to ask you, Bobby Allen. You're a young guy out here slugging it out, but I know you crossed paths with him multiple times. Just what comes to mind when we think of Bobby Allen?
Yeah, just how much he's put into this sport has been unreal, honestly. And, I think the biggest thing that I take away from it is away from him and how he was is how much my father-in-law talks to him. They talk all the time. And Stevie doesn't just talk to people just out of the nowhere, So, every time I come to the shop, it seems like, I just got off the phone with Bob, or Bob was wondering this, or we're trying to figure out this. And so it just, man, it was a big shock to hear that the other day. Man, it was very, very devastating for sure.
Sure was. Tanner, when you think about someone like Bobby Allen, and I just would love to get your perspective on this because we talked to Lance about it, but guys like him and Steve Kinzer, Wolfgang, your father-in-law and his father, they kind of set the foundation of our sport. How big are you into the history of sprint car racing and, the importance of that era?
I'm huge into it because I feel like we all kind of circle back around to what they did back then. I mean, these cars are all the same, it seems like. I mean, here's a little die cast from way back when of one of Stevie's cars. And it's just crazy to see I
have that die cast.
That nothing. Yeah, it's one of the best ones.
Yeah, I have that exact one.
Yeah, it's just crazy that much hasn't changed, honestly, and it's just, we have a car. He's got one of his old Ingersoll Rand cars from 90, I want to say 99 or 98. And there's nothing different. The parts and pieces are a little bit nicer because, you can put them in a CNC and they're a little bit more cost effective now, but just nothing's different. I mean, and that's kind of why where we're at with our wing cars, we're getting back to 1999, 2002 setups, just it's crazy to kind of see. And I feel like the history of our sport is very important, especially in a spot where I'm at, to kind of develop what we have. And I say develop because it's been around, obviously, but it's hasn't been around, in quite some time. So you know, what all them guys have done over the years of, and the technology they didn't have compared to what we have now, and still doing and having speed, and the speed they had back then is unreal. So, yeah, big into the history for sure.
So, Tanner, one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on, which Steve mentioned, was the innovation in your coilover car. And this is all coming together. So, when I first started driving sprint cars was 99, and I drove for a guy named Dave Miller, who your father-in-law would certainly remember. He used to make all the titanium parts for your
Okay.
father-in-law. So the first car I
Oh,
ever
wow.
raced was one of Stevie's old cars, and it was painted blue, number 74. First car I ever won in. So when this
Wow.
conversation came up, I was like, oh my gosh, I drove one of Stevie's old cars. That was a coilover
Yeah.
car. And then you showed the die cast of like the same era I have. It's kind of wild how you're talking about how the sport comes around. The cars haven't changed much. So with all that said, I mean, we want to talk about the success that you've had this season. But what is it like working with your father-in-law? That's got to be an interesting dynamic as is, but he's an innovator. His whole family was.
Yeah, it's awesome. Honestly, it's a dream come true. I used to play him on the Woo game just because, and I didn't know him. I didn't know, and honestly, I didn't really know anything about sprint cars back in the day when I was playing that game. I played him because the car was all black and it was just basic on the game. And you know, and then we kind of we got put together through Lee Lindgren when I was racing the wing sprint car out in California, and ended up putting his first set of brakes on a midget that he had built for Chili Bowl, and I won the race of champions. And from that time on, and then he screwed up by bringing his daughter to the racetrack that year too. So, yeah, it just from that time on, it's just him and I've clicked. And then, you know, I worked for him for when I was running my midget stuff. I worked for him for I think what 2-3 years off and on, just whenever I had time and whenever I wasn't racing. And just I feel like him and I click, and it's crazy because we're polar opposites. Like he's very calm and thinks about what he's saying, and I say stuff before I think about it most times. And um, it's been good though. Like honestly, I mean, it's hard to work with somebody when you're with them, let alone when they're, you know, 500, 600, thousands of miles away, you know. And just his lingo and my viewing of how I feel and what I'm feeling versus what he's seeing. It's just everything's clicked, and it's hard to get that into someone that's sitting right next to you in the pits watching, let alone across the country. So it's been really fun, and something that I've definitely looked back at and been like, damn, I'm lucky, you know, to kind of have his leadership in our program.
Well, and you have that leadership and you have that innovation, and you guys are running coilover springs on the race car. You're doing that. Just describe a little bit about the process of even deciding to go in that direction and deciding to go in a different direction than virtually everyone else has these days.
Yeah, I keep joking. We're the 1% now, honestly.
That's it.
But no, so it started out, I actually, when, you know, I first started coming around, I was keeping my midget stuff around COVID time, at his shop. And, I was running the oil fire midget, and I was struggling a little bit, I felt like, and we changed the torsion bar and all of a sudden got fast again. So like we were lacking something there. Right. And then I was at Lake of the Ozark, and I was like, you know what? Me and Lee were on the phone. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna put coilovers on the back of this thing because they already have coilovers on the front. And I said, if I go quickest in hot laps, I'll run them the rest of the night and I'll try to figure it out. Well, I went quickest by like 4/10, and it was like ridiculous. And I'm like, wow, you know, okay. So then I run like fifth or sixth, you know, I had to obviously learn the ride height changes and stuff. And then the next night I said same thing. If I go quickest in the group, I'm gonna run it again. And so the coilovers kind of developed there. And then obviously I knew he ran coilovers on a sprint car, and you know, I was kept always bugging him like, hey, like let's build a coilover car. Let's build a coilover car. And he's like, no way. No way. Well, all his stuff was all, you know, different. Like it wasn't just off the shelf stuff. So he was in his mind like, there's no way in hell that we're doing this. I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I don't have all this stuff. And I don't even know if you're gonna like it, you know? So it just kind of went by the wayside for a minute. And then he has a torsion bar dyno, and it's not like a dyno like a shock dyno. It's custom built. It's all static weight, right? And I checked all my torsion bars, and I had some 975s that were rating stiffer than quarters, and quarters softer, new bars, old bars, and they were all over the place. And I didn't even tell Stevie. I called Dan at Maxim and said, "Do you want to build me a car? It's not your normal car, just custom car." And he's like, "Let me get back to you." And he got back to me within a couple hours, and I ordered a coil car, and that was it. I was like, "There's no way in hell that we're making adjustments on our car for what we think it's doing versus what it's not, putting a bar in and not knowing what we actually have." So, and then from there on, I told him at about, I don't know, a week later, and he's like, "No, you didn't." I was like, "No, like, we're doing this. You don't have a choice. I'm over it." And it got there, and man, it was like he knew what to do, obviously, but it was all hands on deck. We had no shock towers, rear pickup points, anything. And we, got this car built and got everything hung in it and got our shock towers where we wanted them. And yeah.
That's wild. So obviously the cars are made completely differently, the chassis. But if you were to describe to just like our listeners, viewers, what is the biggest difference as a driver feel wise? Is there a big difference when you've got coilovers versus torsion bars?
I feel like when it's right, there's a huge difference. Like when it's on point, like the 2 nights I've won, when it's on, it's on. And when it's off, it's way, way off. So, but fortunately, I feel like even from the first night out, like we ran it 6 nights last year. And from the first night out, like we were in a ballpark of being okay, and don't get me wrong, we've changed a lot of stuff to try stuff and been way out in left field and then just went right back to basics. And but it just got so much more grip, like just even rolling in the pits, like the way the steering feels rolling up to the lineup area, it's like just something different. That was the first thing I told Stevie. I said, when I was rolling up to go get on the racetrack, I'm like, man, this thing, something feels different. And he's like, he's like, I don't know, it's been a while, obviously, since he ran them, but just the way the load on the front tires and everything. And like, I can run up behind people in dirty air and not lose my nose like I do with the bar car. And there is sometimes where it wants to raise up, but it's got so much wheel load per point, it has so much grip at times, and at times it's bad and times it's good. So we actually have a kind of a little development car that we're going to start building to try to change some stuff for bad feels and stuff that I feel. And so just try to get our stuff a little bit better on big tracks as well.
I want to ask, we've spent the last couple of weeks talking about innovative race cars, and I know you weren't at Sharon Speedway when Dale Blaney rolled that Dave Blaney creation out, but what's your take when you see something like that? Did you Google pictures of it? Did you watch it? What's your take when you see that? Did you, and I'm not asking for any secrets here, but did it spur some other ideas in mind?
I've talked to Dale quite a bit. Dale and I go pretty far back. So I used to go to the races a lot with him, and like with him and George Fisher from like 2000 end of 13 to 17, or 16 when he passed away. Like I went to a lot of races with him. So Dale and I've talked quite a bit to Dale. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
So, we won't give away any more secrets.
No, you're good. It's all good.
What is it's got to be a challenge though, because it's not like you can talk to your buddies 2 teams down or 3 teams over or 1 team over or call somebody else. This has got to be fascinating, learning all of this, what your car does kind of on your own. It's
great. It's the best part. I don't have to worry about anybody. They still are worrying about what we're doing on good track when we're good, but none of it transitions over to a bar car, honestly. Like we have, it's funny because like obviously Ricky Warner's with Rico and I'm really good buddies with Rico, but like Ricky will ask me questions and I'll tell him and he's like, "You're full of it." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." Like, you can go over there. I'll give you permission. You can go over there and measure it. Like, I'm not lying to you, And he's like, "There's no way." And I'm like, "No, there is a way. Like, that's how it is." So, It's just different. I mean, I'd say 99% of the country is not rolling around on anything smaller than a 94 casing left rear, and we have 92s on 90% of the time. And yeah, it's just a lot of stagger, and it's just I don't know. There's just a lot of grip in the car.
That's awesome. Tanner, how hard is it to develop some of these things when it's not a sport that you easily get to test? I mean, the high limit series has a little bit less racing, maybe than, race events. So maybe there's time for you to test, but how hard is it to try new things when you are worried a little bit about points and about the whole season long effort?
It's definitely difficult. I feel like we've done a really good job of trying stuff and not really hurting our performances as well as much. And don't get me wrong, there's nights where, we're taking provisionals and we don't want to, but it's necessary, right? Um, and that's just part of developing and building. And the whole testing thing, I'm not a huge fan of testing. We've tested twice. The first time we tested, I sat in the car for about 6 hours and Stevie wouldn't let me get out. And all I heard about was that's how him and his dad did it. So, when Stevie would change stuff on the car, they would change a bunch of stuff or one thing at a time, and I would have to come in and tell him what it felt. That way, I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a picture already made up in my mind. And then the next time we went and tested, we were getting ready to roll out west, and we're like, man, these guys are screwed. Like we're fast, we're good, and we weren't. So, the testing stuff is definitely more beneficial when you can do it with cars that are up to speed, and you just I feel like you get a bigger all around picture of what you have that way. So it makes it difficult, but I think the best thing is being on a racetrack that's actually racing and going from there.
We've talked so much about the innovation. Let's talk about the performance on the racetrack. So many drivers have made their way from midget cars, non-wing racing to the wing world. What was the relief factor like when you picked up that Commonwealth Clash win at Lernerville? Yeah, you won a Power Hour race earlier and you've won a little bit here and there, but what was the relief to get a national touring win and kind of get that checked off, if anything else, so you can move on to the second one, which you got a couple weeks ago at Path Valley?
Yeah, it was good. We've been so close, man, so many times, and not necessarily just with this car and this team, but even like outlaw wins over the years. I've been so close and just haven't gotten one, which I've been so pissed off about because there's a lot of people I'm like, how? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but they got them. But it just, man, I think it's honestly taken longer. I've always been this way. You got to lose them to win them. And you got to learn what's right and wrong. And yeah, I could go jump in a car that is capable of winning and whatnot, but I might go win in it, but what's that ever teach you? I've learned so much about life and business and everything through my extravaganza of racing, I guess you call it. And just it's a big sign of relief, but it just makes me even more hungry, man. Like that, you can do it, so and then a lot of sweat and not necessarily tears because we don't really cry around here, but a lot of blood, sweat, and tears have went into this program, and I've been very fortunate to meet my car owner that I have, Rod Gross, and who's his dream was my dream in a way, and I don't know why, don't know how we got connected, but we did, man, and we've had a lot of ups and downs, but it's what it's about.
Tanner, beyond the racetrack, I think about a vehicle crash you had out in California and how you got busted up on that. I think about drinking beer with you and shooting duct tape into a garbage can at the Chili Bowl. I think about the struggles you've had, the good times you've had winning the Chili Bowl race, and here you are now. You're working side by side with your father-in-law. You've got a bride. You got a little girl. Life, quite the story, quite the journey you've been on, my man.
Yeah, it's just I feel like I'm living a life that I needed to live in a way. Honestly,
Yeah.
like I was not necessarily going down the wrong path, but I was probably not going to be racing much longer in a sense, like as far as just the drive of wanting to race and stuff. And um, yeah, when I met Shay, I feel like that kind of all turned around a little bit. And I've always said this, like you gotta hit rock bottom, but I feel like everybody's rock bottoms are a little bit different, and not necessarily getting in trouble or whatnot. But like I said, when I went through my hauler wreck, like I didn't even know if I was going to be able to use my arm again. Like I didn't know this till after the fact, but I could obviously tell. I'm like, my hand's not moving, my arm's like jacked up. But the doctor was like, hey man, like, I guess told my parents, like, he might not be able to race, like he might not be able to use his left hand or arm anymore. My parents didn't tell me. They're scared as hell, right? Because this is my life, this is what I do. And I didn't know that in my mind, so I didn't really think about it and just kind of kept working. And once they told me that, I was like, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Like I'm racing and this thing's gonna start working. And I just just went to physical therapy. Actually, Rico's dad, David Abreu, got me in with his physical therapist, and everything just kind of turned around and went for the better. And I wouldn't change any of it, man. Like I said, I've learned so much over my since 2018, 17, 18 to now. It's been incredible. Like, it's my baby girl's healthy and good, and she's the joy of my life, her and her mom. And I'm doing what I love, racing and working on cars and stuff and working on my property. And like, it's just been good. So, and the best part about it is nothing's been handed to me. So that's what I enjoy more than less, like just building up an empire that you have to do yourself, so, but yeah, other than that, it's been good. And, I'm ready to kind of keep building and developing what we have going here. And I just got 2 new midgets out in the shop. So they're getting ready for the West Coast and Chili Bowl, and just trying to kind of develop that side of my team a little bit too, as far as, because obviously I've been running them, and we got 2, I'd say, development cars that are in here now that we're going to try changing around. And so, yeah, it's been really good.
I absolutely love it. I've enjoyed, I don't know, I think the first conversation, you might have been running a truck for Richard Childress, and we chatted at Eldora, might have been the first conversation, and what a journey. Tanner, just so happy for you. I absolutely love your story. Appreciate the time today. Thanks for joining us here on Wing Nation.
Yep. Thank you guys. Thanks for having us.
There we go. Tanner Thorson joining us. I know I mentioned this with talking to Lance Dewease, Aaron, but the World of Outlaws National Open at Williams Grove was a phenomenal 2 nights of racing. I mean, I watched on Dirt Vision. My only wishes I could have been there. It was just outstanding. Justin Lowe and everybody at Williams Grove, and I know Danny Dietrich lit everybody up a month or so ago about the racetrack and their track prep. The track was exceptional Friday night. It was really, really good on Saturday night. Yeah. But when you get Williams Grove exceptional,
I was just going to say that.
Batten down the hatches. And to go in there on Friday night, and the posse, Chase Dietz, first off, and we talked to Chase early this year, getting his career first World of Outlaw win with Lance Dewease and Danny Dietrich in tow. Man, I'm telling you what, they gave the faithful in Pennsylvania something to hoot and holler about.
Sure did. The old Beer Hill gang was having fun, I'm sure.
It was awesome. And Saturday night, Sheldon Haudenschild gets his career first crown jewel win. I think this is good. Jeremy Elliott on his 90 at 9. I forget. I always go 9 at 90. It's like, no, he doesn't go 9 minutes at 90 o'clock. He goes 90 seconds or 2 or 3 minutes at 9. He talked about this, and I kind of want to echo what Jeremy said. Sheldon, this was a seasoned, mature drive by Sheldon, where he got better as the race went on. With 5 laps to go, he got by Bill Baylog, which that's another story. Bill Baylog about winning the National Open. Yep. And I just think that Sheldon is probably as good a race as I've ever seen Sheldon put together 40 laps or a full race. He was exceptional on Saturday night. And then Baylog. I mean, and then Danny coming back with a 3rd place finish. I know it's been a while since Danny's won a World of Outlaw race, but that could change at New Egypt or Lincoln this weekend.
Top
Danny
3 both nights. Yep.
Danny is rolling. Want to mention this also. Troy Wagaman gave Mike Hefner another track championship at Williams Grove. And Aaron, an underlying theme of this year is, my God, will someone turn off the silly season? This goes back to when Gio leaves the 18 car during the King's Royal.
Yeah.
You know, then 2 days after the Nationals, Donnie Schatz is no longer with. This season has been crazy, and we wake up Sunday morning and the crew chief that won the National Open the night before is unemployed.
Yeah.
And, you know, let someone else deal with the details and the rumor of everything, but will someone give me a scorecard and let me know
it's hard to keep track.
Let me know who's going to be where when we get to Volusia. That's what I want to know.
And let's not say the wrong thing, because it's easy to right now with the rate in which people are changing teams. It's hard to keep up.
I mean, it's crazy. So crazy time in the sprint car world. Let's get right to it. Upcoming World of Outlaw and NOS Energy Drink Sprint Cars. They're back in the Northeast again for a final weekend up there, Erin.
They sure are. New Egypt Friday night, Lincoln on Saturday night.
So wide open world in New Egypt, because to my knowledge, Darren Pittman's not entered. Didn't he? He won like every time they went there.
Yeah.
And I'm well, unless he decides to dial up Donald and say, hey, let's haul that 69K over to New Egypt and pocket 10 or 12 grand. So it's going to be fun. Kubota High Limits out at Lakeside Speedway, and few other shows along the way as well.
Yep, we got Lernerville, the Steel City Stampede Friday, Saturday night, and Sealands Grove Friday night. They have the Kramer Cup for $73,000 to win, or $7,300. $7,300.
$7,300. Yes, you just choked the people up at Sealands Grove.
Everyone's like, oh no!
Who's coming up with a $73,000 to win purse?
Kramer Cup, I like that.
What an amazing show! I want to take this back. I want to share a couple of Bobby Allen stories. I shared the one with Carrie Madsen. And on our Facebook group is an interview series we did. We had Ray Evernham and Tony Stewart, NASCAR Hall of Famers at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, interview other Hall of Famers, and Bobby Allen, the stories and the way they came off. You've got to just go to our Facebook. It's on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, or you can go to our Facebook group and you can find it. I just posted it up there this morning. The final one is, we're setting up a Wing Nation. I had made this crazy decision to let my hair grow out. Bill Klingbeil's setting up, and Krager's on the other side. Krager and Bill Klingbeil are setting up the Zoom call, and Bobby's sitting there in the shop or wherever he's at, and he's looking at it and that sort of thing. Bobby, in Bobby Allen fashion, again, I just started letting my hair go out. He leans over and says to Bill, "You didn't tell me I was being interviewed by Jesus today." And it set the tone for the whole interview. Bobby Allen, iconic driver, iconic team owner, but even more than that, iconic personality.
Really, truly. He was such a big personality that, like we've mentioned, the start of the World of Outlaws and current World of Outlaws, just up until this Saturday night. Absolutely.
So our thoughts and prayers are with the sprint car family. You know, obviously the Shark Racing family, the Allen family, our thoughts and prayers there, but to the entire sprint car community, because we've lost a big one here. We've lost an icon, that is for sure. And all the more important to get out and go to races, folks. Go out and race, talk to people, whether you talk to a Bobby Allen or you talk to the guy that sits next to you in the grandstands at Williams Grove that you've sat next to for 40 years. Go out to a racetrack and enjoy it this weekend. We're grateful for Lance Dewease. We're grateful for Tanner Thorson. She's Erin Evernham. I'm Steve Post. More important than all of that, though, we're grateful that you have joined us this time here on Wing Nation on the Motor Racing Network.